Hey, I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com, and today we're going to install a set of Driven Halo Clip Ons on our 2018 BMW S1000RR Chronopocalypse Edition STG project bike. Okay, so clip-on installs. On the surface, that seems like it's a pretty simple project, right? Yes and no. Your controls are really important. When you're done, they have to be absolutely perfect, okay? To install the clip-ons on this BMW S1000RR is gonna look a little different than some of the other bikes that we've done. We've got this electronically controlled suspension, so I gotta dive in here and figure out how in the hell I'm gonna deal with that thing, right? Because ultimately what I wanna do is I wanna pull the top triple clamp off the bike so I can gain access to the clip-on itself and slide it off the fork tubes. The ones that we're installing are a split cuff. They're two halves, right? So if in fact you were to damage the cuff in the event of a crash, which very rarely happens, you would never have to take the top triple clamp off again. Normal tip overs, normal crashes, you're gonna damage a bar. 2 bolts later, you slide that bad boy out and you are race ready all over again, okay? So if you're gonna do a track bike, clip-ons are an absolute must. You have a tip over at the track and break one of these OEM clip-ons, the project is much more significant than simply replacing a clip-on bar. We're gonna take you through this whole process, and to be fair, there's a lot of stuff here that for me, it's going to be the first time I've done it, so if I screw it up, please don't laugh out loud. Starting off, we're gonna go ahead and remove the bar ends from the bike. We have the bar ends still on this side. On the other side, we have our driven lever guard. We showed you an install there using the OEM clip-ons. So that install is gonna change a little bit once we have the driven clip-ons on the bike. For the purpose of this video, I just left the race bodywork off. Just gonna give me more access and give you all a much clearer field of vision. Let's kind of dive into this fork here. This is ultimately all gonna be replaced. Jimmy's got a fork cartridge kit that we'll have another video pulling the forks off this thing here pretty soon. And really give you guys an idea. Okay, so this obviously I'm not unplugging anything here. So I think the right way to do that is kind of dig down here in this harness and see if I can't find the other end of that. Okay, 30 up here. That was a T25, I believe I was using. Kind of cool what they did here with this clutch perch. It's hinged. So they're being 2 halves. It's hinged. That's kind of cool. It's pretty trick. Brake master on the other side. We'll deal with that after. For now, I want to kind of go after this side specifically here. And so we got to lift the bike up, cut some cable ties, and see if we can't find the other end of that connector. This is wrapped around the harnesses here, just a rubber piece. You pull the button through the slot and kind of follow that down. Looks like we're gonna have another one of those. And further downstream, a couple of cable ties. Yeah, I've said this before, like so automotive-like the way this thing is put together. Okay, this bends around here. Cut a couple of these bad boys off. All right, there we go. There it is here. To release it, push here on the tab. And you always want to try to pull on the connector itself, right? Never pull on the wires. All right, separate that. Feed that up here and through. A lot going on here with this clutch switch and the switch pod. Okay, pinch bolt. Let's go ahead and back that way off. Come over to the other side, do the same thing. This is a little bit of a journey. This whole grip thing is there's some shit going on here, I'll tell you. So if you're a BMW owner and you end up doing clip-ons on your bike, this video is going to help you get it done with very little drama. This is a 36 mil. A little bit of red lacquer on that. Okay. Looks like there is a washer in there. We're going to grab that. Let's see if we can't. The triple to release. There we go. Off she comes. We'll watch her. Cluster there. Kind of leave that thing right about there. Now the grips, these are interesting, okay? To be fair, I spent a little time off camera sorting this out, right? So I didn't figure it out right out of the gate. Loosen up the clip-on pinch. Okay, for the grip on our clutch side, you need a T15. Okay, roll the grip back like so. And look at that. Who does that? Who hides that in there? This is mean. I need a pair of needle nose to pull that out of there. I have put on a lot of clip-ons at this point. Many bikes. I can tell you, beyond the shadow of a doubt, I've never seen anything that looked like this. This is pretty unique. I need to grab a pick and give that a little push. You're able to kind of roll the grip up on either side. There's a little nut that's held here. Jimmy's bike came from the factory with the heated grips. Ultimately on his bike, that's going to be done away with. For the purpose of this video here, we're going to go ahead and try to leave these intact, okay? And then we'll have a second video for just grip replacement because I think that's going to be kind of dramatic all in its own right. For the suspension, and then check that out. All as one unit. And now we'll move over to the throttle side, and this honestly looks even more interesting, okay? Brake master. Those are T30. I took a quick look at the throttle assembly, and I gotta tell you, this side looks a little tougher than the clutch side was. I think I'm gonna have an easier time getting the throttle assembly off if I have the clip on in my hand and I'm able to kind of roll it over and look at the back side. Okay. Master cylinder roll out of the way. Triple clamp kind of slide down right about there. Looks good. Make sure we're not doing any damage here. It's all pretty lightweight, so I'm not worried about that damage in the harness. Grab that pinch bolt. Bam. And there it is right there. That looks like it's a T8. Okay, and unfortunately the setup that we got here with the bit, that's not gonna happen. Okay, so now I need a T8 that is actually on the shaft of a screwdriver. Okay, you can't have the thickness of a bit, and we're gonna work on getting that right now. Okay, now let's tackle the throttle side, okay? This is a lot easier to do. If you have the clip on in your hand, you're able to roll this over. This is a T8. Okay, I already talked about how I couldn't use the setup I was using previously on the clutch side to get this fastener out. Once you remove that, get yourself a small flat bladed screwdriver, a little tickle right there. What you can also do is kind of push in this direction here on the throttle harness. You're going to push and then pull. So what you're doing is you're compressing this and then pulling outward. It's going to get you a little more operating room. Bam. Off comes that cover. This is super intuitive, isn't it? Look at that right there. Let's hide that little screw right there. That is another T8. It's going to get the second part of that switch assembly off. It's funny. Most bikes, to pull the throttle or the clutch side or change a grip is pretty easy. That is not the case here, my man. Okay, then you have to roll the switch assembly like that. There's your T15. And out she comes. Look at that. Okay. When I come back, we're going to begin mocking up the clip-ons for installation. Okay, so on the brake side of the bike, remember we have that lever guard. The OEM throttle assembly literally terminates right here, flush with the end of the clip-on. Okay, we had to put a spacer on this bike to make this work. So what I need to do now is I need to move this throttle assembly a little inboard on our driven clip-on bar. Okay, I've decided I want the throttle to terminate here. It's going to give me about 10 millimeters of spacer, right? Because this end will be pulled out to work with our lever guard. That should be more than enough. What I've done then is I have measured from here to here. It's 150 millimeters, ironically, about 152 millimeters, and that is the end of my scale, okay? So that worked out pretty good. Got that center punched, and we're gonna drill out. And this is, you wanna be really careful here. You wanna drill as straight as possible. We're not gonna show you the whole thing. We're just gonna show you some of it because I need Caleb to get the hell out of the way so I can drill this thing and actually have light without a 6'8" giant standing over me. Okay, now we're gonna do the clutch side. It's the same deal. All right, let's establish, what is that distance? About 118. Transfer that over, right, to this bar. Remember, we're starting here, okay? So we keep it even from side to side. Which size drill bit did I use? Let me show you the scientific method that I used to determine the size drill bit I was gonna use. I found the one that fit in the hole the best, okay? That's what we're gonna use. Same deal with the drilling. We'll show you a little bit. We're not gonna show you all of it because he's just too damn tall and he always stands right in the light. Never anywhere else, always in the light, and then I can't see nothing. It's all. Take your time, make sure it's straight, really good center punch so it doesn't walk, and drill away. Okay, the OEM bar on this side, that is a tapered seat, so we want to kind of duplicate that effect. Getting a larger drill bit, all I did there is I just got one that looked like it had about the same contour. That should be enough for the fastener to go through. Now we'll go back over the bike and see how we did. Okay, before we put our top triple tree back on, top triple clamp, we need to get our clip-on cuffs into position. It's really important that the gap that you have from side to side is relatively even so you get a good even pull. So what I like to do is, while I can see them, kind of establish that. I need to open this one up just a little bit. I wouldn't go as far as to measure this. You know, you just want to put some effort into getting it good and close. Kind of rotate it so it's out of the way. If you want to snug one up just a little bit, hold it in position, you can do that. Do the same thing on the clutch side now. Okay, now let's get the top triple clamp back into position. It's not uncommon, you know, when you lose the support of the upper triple to get things to shift a little bit. So how am I going to deal with that? Well, what I'm going to do here is kind of come up to the front of the bike here, get this started over the fork tubes, and then I'm going to kind of pull forward, put a little downward pressure. Kind of at the same time. You see I've gotten that started. I'll just work that down. You can see it's just really light pressure. I'm not really hitting it very hard at all. Get it seated, and we'll get some torque specs. Okay, we're going to start with our top triple clamp nut here. Remember, there was a little thread locker on that, so that's not going to thread on there super easy, so don't freak out. Okay, what I like to do is just kind of get it seated like that. And 74 foot-pounds is the torque spec that we're going to land on here ultimately. I'm just going to put just a tiny and a little bit of torque here on each side while I torque up that steering stem nut. And then I'll loosen these back up and re-torque them. See, very minimal torque. And we'll get this to 74. Okay, now we're going to loosen up those two. Right, they really weren't very tight. This is just to make sure everything's even. Now that it's held firmly in the center, and clearly it's flush, it's kind of a light tab. Just make sure everything's good and even. Forks look like they're in the same position that they were before. And, you know, for the sake of our project here, those are going to be coming right back off, right? So obviously you want to make sure your fork height is perfectly level side to side. We're not going to get too detailed there right now because this is all coming back apart when we send Jimmy's forks out. We've got 14 foot-pounds here. There you go, top triple clamp, torque down. Okay, now let's go ahead and see how we did with drilling out the bar. Not bad, that seems like that's gonna work pretty good. All right, we've got the throttle installed. Let's go ahead and get the switch pod. This is a really modular design here. Make sure you have it all seated correctly. Let's grab our fasteners. You remember you're gonna have the one right here. Make sure you don't get any of the wires pinched underneath your fastener. The other half. Get that snapped in. Make sure the other side engages correctly. Wiring harness is good and tight. Drop that down in there. That snug. Plug your throttle back in. Slide the bar in place. And the stuff you see here right now, this is just rough, right? We're gonna come back, we're gonna fine tune all this. This is nothing more than a place to start. Let's hit the camera. Once you had it in the wrong place. Okay, brake master now. Make sure you have the second half of the clamp. See the arrow up. Go ahead and get your fastener started. Get it into position. It looks pretty good. Let's get our T30 here. The upper bolt, you can just go ahead and torque right out of the gate. Okay. That one, you tighten all the way, and then all the tension on the clamp will be done with the bolt on the bottom. You know, a lot of this, I'm gonna have to have Jimmy on the bike, give him an opportunity to let me know where he wants the controls positioned, and we'll fine tune that. But for now, I'm gonna go right about there. Looks like this is still line up here. To have the master in the position that we do right now, probably going to need to extend the length of that hose just a little bit. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of this video, I'm going to move the master cylinder inboard just a little bit. It's actually not a horrible spot right there. Everything looks pretty good. Still pulling a little tighter on that than I'd like to see. That's a really good spot to start. Make sure your torque is even on the bar. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and remove the bar end plug. Keep that. And now we can install the driven lever guard. Okay. This now will use this mount system. This all comes complete in the kit from Driven. Slide that into position with a 5mm T-handle. that all snugged up. And there we go. The brake side is essentially done. Okay, now let's get the other side done up here. Start off with our cuff. What I did is I used a reference point on the top triple clamp itself to help get this set up to an angle that should be very similar to what we already have on the other side. I'll come back later. I've got a Motion Pro clip-on alignment tool that I like to use. You know, once we kind of land on where Jimmy wants them in terms of the position, right, then we'll get a little more detailed, making sure the angle is perfectly even from side to side. Torque nice and even. We'll grab the other bar. Okay, let's do the same thing we did on the other side. Slide that clip-on bar through. It should be right about there. Let's rotate it and see if we can find the hole. Boy, if these line up, I'm gonna be really happy. Not gonna lie. Wow, look at that. I actually got it. You know, drilling through and making sure that you're straight through the bar like that, I was a little concerned about how that was going to turn out, but you know what, it looks like I did okay. Looks like I did okay. So now this bar can go through and we'll just kind of stage it here at the same spot. Go ahead and get that torqued. That feels good and even. Let's get a look at our clutch perch here. This thing's pretty tricky. Get that torqued up. Getting close. We are getting close. Okay, installing the Driven Halo clip-ons, or really any clip-on that's going to move the bars further forward, you know, it changes the ergos of the bike, and it also changes the positioning of the controls in relation to the instrument cluster, things like that. So what you oftentimes have to do when you're building your bike into a race bike, converting it to a track bike, right, is install something to shorten up the sweep of the bars, right? And what I usually do is I put wheel weights on the stops on the frame where they come in contact with the lower triple clamp. That reduces the sweep just a little bit. Remember, you're using this on the track. You don't need that same type of turning radius, right? All the bikes that we're riding on the racetrack right now, they have the sweep shortened up a little bit with either a different steering stop installed, like on the R3, a modified steering stop on the Ninja 400, or on my Gixxer 1000, having wheel weights put in position just like I did here. On the BMW, when I went sweep to sweep, without those installed, we had a little interaction here between the clutch cable and the cluster. The brake line was rubbing a little bit harder. Okay, so shortening that up just a little bit, something you're never going to notice. You don't need to be able to turn them all the way, right? When you're moving it around in the trailer and the paddock by hand, you might kind of notice it, but while riding it, you'll never ever notice it. This can also help in the event of a crash, absorb some of that impact and reduce the possibility of breaking the tab off the lower triple clamp, so there can be some added benefit to doing that. Okay, let's wrap this project up now. There were a lot of steps involved here, okay? Anytime you're modifying the controls of your motorcycle, it's important that you get the job done right. These come loose, right? They're not positioned correctly. You've got interference between, say, the brakes and the cluster, whatever. It could reduce your safety. You never want to do that. So you need to take your time. Before you ride the bike, give everything a good, solid once-over, right? Identify any problem areas, get those sorted out before your first test drive. With clip-on torque, what I really like to do is after your first ride, your first session or whatever, you go to the track or whether you're street riding, just get the toolbox out, grab your Allen wrench, right? And just feel them all out. Make sure that everything is still torqued down good. That's best practice with these for sure. You don't want to go crazy on the clip-on cuffs. There's no reason to do it. There's so much clamping force there in surface area, right? The bolts really don't need to be all that tight. I don't use a torque wrench on these. It's very difficult to access them with a torque wrench. When I'm finishing these up, it's always going to be with just an Allen, just like this. Good, even torque. With this install, we chose not to replace the grips. We're going to shoot a second video on grip replacement for this S1000RR. And the reason we're going to do that is you actually have to buy 2 sets of grips. You need the throttle tube size for both sides because of the control pod setup they have over here on the clutch side of the motorcycle. If you guys have any questions, leave those in the comment section of this video. I answer all that stuff myself. I try to stay up on all that and get it done in a timely manner. And I'm always here to help you get the same result from your project we do ours.